So the time is 7:02. My name is Eric Moore. This is the Town Meeting Study Committee in Concord. I think, Chase, I'm not going to make you clerk tonight. I think I will clerk.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's go through and take roll for the folks who are here. Chase, I'm going to start with you, please.
Here.
Thank you. Keith Bergman, please.
Present.
Thank you. Parish Secretary, please.
Here.
And Kristen Haggerty.
Here.
And Eric Moore here. So again, we're five. We're not expecting Eric Van Loon. We'll see about Katie and Alice and Phil. So moving forward. So our agenda tonight, public comment, if is always welcome. We have some minutes to approve. Parashar and Phil have prepared, well, Phil and then Parashar prepared a motion to clarify how clickers are to be used. So we'll get to that. And then the bulk of the meeting tonight is to talk about the report. So moving forward into public comment. Any public comment from anybody? I see a few folks online. Always welcome. Seeing none, moving forward. Thank you. So minutes. Chase, we're going to look at the minutes that you just provided at our next meeting. We do have one set of minutes in hand from March 10th, 2025 by Kristen Haggerty.
I thought I sent my December 19th minutes to you guys.
You have,
Okay.
but we had this thing about the subcommittee.
Oh,
And so, yeah.
I'll
So,
put the subcommittee on the agenda for Monday.
perfect. And all we're gonna do is approve those minutes and then
Yeah,
close the committee.
and that's it, yeah.
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, it's time. So, yeah. So minutes from March 10th. The motion to open this, oh, gosh, I'm getting tongue tied. I'd like to approve those minutes. Do we have any discussion on them?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Kristen, would you second, please?
Second.
Cool. Any discussion on the minutes? I thought they were great, thank you. And quick. Any other discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, moving into a vote. Chase, this is a vote to approve the minutes from March 10th, 2025, prepared by Kristen Haggerty. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes. Aye.
Thank you. Keith Bergman, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Parashar Patel, please.
Aye.
Kristen Haggerty, please.
Aye.
And Eric Moore, aye. So the minutes are approved unanimously. Let's see, moving forward so tonight, really working session centered on report version 1. Excuse me, Shannon, was people locked out of the townhouse downstairs? Would you go look at the front door, please? I know it's unlocked, but just someone can't get in, so, all right, thank you. So tonight, looking at the first, V1 of the report and stuff that we provided, and the real intention is to figure out how to move forward. Then next week on Monday, version 2, basically an integration of what we have. And then April 7th, again, the report. There's some new things I'd like to talk about, but we'll see about that. And a few dates coming up. The home rule petition presentation of the select board, and another working session. So moving forward, I had an email with Amalia McCaffrey and it's either Paul or Peter Kelly. This is the IT head for the schools about just asking about Wi-Fi for town meeting. They have a plan. He was pretty confident that we would be well served. Not a surprise, right? Amalia's comment was, she's kind of really focused on the 19th and I'll loop back to double check after that. But he was confident that they have the capacity to support town meeting this year.
What's the 19th?
The 2020, yeah.
Just must
Concord
be like
250.
town stuff getting ready for.
No.
Yeah. I don't see Carmen online, unfortunately. I know that Carmen and Kari and Amalia went to the Westford Town Meeting last Saturday. And primarily look at how they were using clickers from both the operational side and experiential side, but she's not on, so can't have a conversation. I was gonna ask Shannon to talk about her experience working with the new format for the warrant. And okay, Phil.
I sorry, I was locked out, David Allen was out there too.
Yeah. So, thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Can I just get how's so new warrant format, publication? You know, a lot of the same stuff and some new stuff. Any comments for the committee in terms of how this new way, this new format is working?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for this year was just learning how this process works with the bridge. Obviously, it was the first time for them too, and I think the first time they put a legal ad of this size in their paper. So there was a lot of coordination between us and their editing team. They were very accommodating and easy to work with, but there was quite a bit of back and forth about how many pages we thought we were gonna need, and you know, really it had to be 4 pages or 8 pages for it to work as an insert, and we wound up going with the 8 pages, but we put like the electronic voting FAQ in there and some other information that we didn't think we were going to include to even just try to get to the 8 pages. But the cost was still reasonable and fine to bump it up to 8
Is
pages.
it okay to talk about the cost?
Yeah, it was $1,200,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
That has to be less than a mailing.
As
Right,
opposed to how much would it cost to do a mailing of the whole warrant?
Yeah, I think we typically budget around $20,000 for that, but so, you know, what we're accounting for this year, I don't think we're going to have cost savings this year, but it should be the same because we're going to mail the briefing book
Right,
and the FinCom report together.
yeah,
Right.
So the cost should be about the same.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
good, thank you, thank you. I'll note that Phil Swain has joined, thank you, Phil. And I'll note that as well that Carmen Reese is joined. Carmen, if I may, I'm curious about what your experience was at the Westford Town meeting Saturday. Do you have a few
Sure.
minutes?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Okay, good. So the town clerk and I, Kari Tari, went to Westford annual town meeting on Saturday. Unfortunately, Molly Caffrey, who's our IT director, was unable to make it because her daughter wasn't feeling well. But Kari and I, you know, they showed us. We saw their check-in and handout system. We got to look at their clickers. We saw the setup that they had on the podium for the town clerk and the person operating the voting system. And we stayed for probably a couple of hours to watch the voting system in action. One thing that I noted is that in Westford, the town moderator is choosing when to use the clickers and when not to, and they still use voice votes. They don't have paper slips.
Mhm.
And I find that interesting. But it was pretty seamless on the votes where she knows her community really well, and she had no trouble deciding when they would just have a voice vote and when they would use the clickers. And I think it was pretty apparent from the tenor of the deliberation in the meeting when it made sense to use the clickers and when it was pretty clear that everyone was happy. So there was no reason to do that. So that was interesting. But the display was easy to read. There weren't any problems. They didn't have a huge turnout for their meeting. They had maybe 400 people there. And then we had they have the same support person who we will have for Concord from Meridia. And the Meridia person came to meet with us at the high school on Monday and look around. And we had an opportunity to discuss logistics and technical setup with him. And I know that Amalia will be working with him on Friday, and we'll get a little demo package so that the IT department is totally up to speed. Her main priority is that the IT department get comfortable with the system, learn how to use it while there's someone there who can troubleshoot. And she wants everyone to be 100% comfortable, and then they can make a decision on whether they would continue leasing or whether they would want to buy. So very instructive, good outing for us.
Thank you, Carmen. A couple of quick questions. So was this Westford's first year with clickers?
No, I think it's a third or fourth. And they did tell us about some issues they had, which were also really instructive. One was just kind of a timing issue on when they opened the voting window, and there being a little confusion in the room about that. And they clearly have that down now. So there was no confusion in the room about that. And another is that they did have an experience where people had left the meeting and left their clickers behind with somebody else, and they discovered that there were some people proxy voting. So, you know, we've had a lot of discussion about how we prevent that. And, you know, it just does seem that we have to rely on people's integrity and goodwill to some extent, and just make it really clear that it is not okay to vote with someone else's clicker or to give someone else your clicker to vote with, and that we expect that you're not going to do that. So
thank you. One other thing. So and this will segue into our next topic, which is the motions from Parashar and from Phil. But how quick were the clicker votes? Just in terms of 30 seconds, 1 minute, whatever. And also, it sounds as though I'm surmising that the moderator for Westford was basically looking to see if there was if it was going to be unanimous vote or not, in terms of making a judgment about clickers or not. What signal do you think the Westford moderator was using, and how long did the clicker votes take?
Well, they only had 400 people, and the more people you have, the longer the vote takes. So it was pretty quick, but they don't have a set time to keep the window open. Instead, what they do is they watch for the votes coming in, and the votes come in quickly at first, then they begin to trickle, and you get a pretty clear sense of when pretty much everybody has voted and you're good to close the window. I think that's probably the approach that we will take, rather than setting a specific time for the window to be open, and maybe having some people not make it in the window, or having people twiddling their thumbs because we made the window too long.
Yeah, is that a minute or what?
No, it was less than that. It was probably about 30 seconds for each vote.
Good, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carmen. I'm gonna move on.
But just one question,
Yeah.
was that the entire Westford town meeting, annual town meeting one day?
Yes, they start at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I think that they finished up at 3 or 4 o'clock on Saturday.
How big was the warrant? Any idea?
I have it. I don't remember. I do have the warrant, so I can answer that. I think there were maybe 30 articles.
Yeah, I'll look it up, Carmen. That's okay.
I mean, were there a lot of repeat talkers at the mic?
No.
There you
Well,
go.
yes,
So that's
actually,
control.
there were. There were certain people who spoke on every article. Yes.
Got it. Just going around, in terms of any other updates and stuff that people have been doing on the committee that might be relevant to tonight. Seeing nothing, moving forward. Clickers usage, and my intro to this is what, with, new recommendations, what problems are we seeking to solve? So, Parashar, I'm taking what you sent and just, it's on the slide. So our most recent recommendation is use clickers routinely for votes and motions to approve articles from the warrant. And Phil, what you proposed, from Parashar, is use clickers in all but routine non-controversial matters where it would appear that there is no substantial doubt as to the outcome. And then Parashar, what you proposed is use clickers routinely for votes on main motions and amendments to articles from the warrant. At the discretion of the moderator, votes on procedural motions, e.g. to take up no new business after a certain time or to call the question, may be taken by a show of paper placards. That's the voting steps. So, let me ask Phil and then Parashar just to make any additional introductions to this and guide us for where we need to go.
I proposed this amendment a couple weeks ago. And, but I sent the draft to Parashar after the last week's meeting. He came up with his amendment and I said, I agree, so I would like to withdraw my prior proposal
Okay,
and support Parashar's amendment.
okay, thank you. Parashar?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. The reason we came up with this, because I think there was confusion around what does motions to approve mean, what about amendments, what about procedural things, et cetera. So took a look at Phil's first stab and then Carmen's FAQs. And in essence, adopted her language around when it might be appropriate to use the placards versus electronic voting. But again, getting back to trying to remove what can be controversial votes away from the discretion of the moderator, which is why that first sentence, if you go back, says, hey, for votes on the main motions and amendments, we're gonna use clickers. That way, nobody can say that there was favoritism or anything else. But then if the moderator feels like, you know what, on regular procedural motions, we'll use the ballots, that's great. There may be instances where she might feel, or he or she might feel, even on the procedural stuff,
Right.
that we should probably have a show of hands. And so that's why that phrase at the discretion of the moderator is there on the procedural stuff.
Mhm.
That was the thought process. And thank you, Carmen, for your FAQ. That helped kind of clarify when it may or may not be appropriate to use placards. So that's what came up with.
I guess do we need a motion to?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
move that we amend the January original TMSC recommendation
Mhm.
to the Parashar's revised amendment, revised version. And I think we need to actually, unless anybody objects, let me withdraw my previous
Sure.
motion to amend.
A second, somebody, please?
Second.
Thank you. So now we're discussing it. So I have a question, if I may. So Carmen was just talking about the Westford moderator making a judgment call as to when to use clickers. And she wasn't explicit about what that basis is, right? It sounded as though if it looks like it's gonna be unanimous, we don't need clickers. That's my inference from what she said. Where does this amendment fit with that kind of practice? Do we want to disallow that practice and really just use clickers?
I think that's been the general consensus, and for a couple of reasons. One is the privacy. Second is counting the votes and having the record, right? And then the third is at the Westford meeting, I don't know what topics were there, et cetera, but maybe it was a non-controversial meeting. I'm not sure I would rely on that N of one. To, in essence, change kind of our original notion of routinely using this.
Okay, good, thank you. Keith Bergman, I'll go to you online, please.
Thanks. I'm in favor of Parashar's amendment. I did have a question, though. I don't, well, if we were playing Jeopardy, it would need to be in the form of a question, but here if there could be, what would a complete sentence look like that the committee votes to recommend to someone? Are we recommending to to our report? Are we recommending to town meeting? Are we recommending to the moderator? Because I'm wondering what goes at the front end of this sentence.
So I'll take a stab at answering, and maybe Carmen, you can correct me when I'm wrong. But we were formed to provide recommendations to the moderator, which is what this would be. And then Carmen, I think you had said for the 2025 meeting, the select board, I think, you and the select board proposed the rules by which we're gonna vote. So presumably you would take our recommendation and put it in a rule. I think that's the answer, Keith, to Carmen.
Yes, that's correct. Because I think that since this is the first time that we'll be using the clickers and adopting a methodology for using them, that town meeting is the place where people have the opportunity to discuss how they would like to do that. So a discussion on a motion for a rule of the meeting, which will look basically just like this, would give people the opportunity to have a discussion about it and to take a vote. What we do in the future, we're not bound by this, so that we may not need rules of the meeting in the future. It may be that people just become comfortable with the use of the clickers and allowing the moderator the discretion to just on really, let's take the consent calendar, for example. If no one has pulled anything off the consent calendar for full deliberation, you can be pretty sure that it's going to pass on a unanimous vote. So do we need the clickers for that, or can we just do a show of placards? So, but for this year, yes, I think the select board should make the motion for the rule of the meeting. So I'd say at the front end of this sentence, you could just say the town meeting study committee recommends that clickers be used at town meeting routinely for votes, blah, blah, blah.
And one of us will want reading that recommendation during the debate for the motion, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Eric and Keith, I have been writing up the section of the report on recommending clickers, and I'll just read what I have drafted.
Sure.
Because it's pretty much what Carmen just said. The committee also made additional recommendations as to how clickers will be used. On January 28th, the committee voted on recommending a policy for how clickers should be used. That's the original. On March 25th, I'm hoping the committee revised its recommendations as follows. So it's just described as recommendations, just like the heading there.
Great, good. Any other discussion on this? One second, David Allen.
I have a question. So Carmen, you said in the future, if the moderator decides there's gonna be unanimous consent on the consent agenda, or presumably any other main motion, there wouldn't be a need to use clickers?
But it depends on what the meeting wants, I mean, in procedural motions, generally speaking, most of them are not motions on which people have a strong concern about privacy, or where we're likely to need to know what the vote count is. They're all majority votes, and never have to count those. On things that everyone is pretty much in agreement on, the desire for privacy in the vote is really not very strong. It's where people may disagree with each other that the desire for privacy, I think, really kicks in.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned, because that implies that the discretion is really back with the moderator. And that is counter to what our recommendation is. And
Right.
So I guess.
So I think that we're going to start with your recommendation, and if that works, great, that's great. If we find that it takes too long on votes where we know that it's all unanimous, we might wish to be able to shortcut those by a simple show of paper placards. But I think if people feel strongly that they like the, Eric Van Loon, I don't know if he's here today, but he suggested to me that in the first instance, it's probably pretty important to just get everybody used to using the clickers. So we should just use them for everything. And then it's open to town meeting to kind of evolve in its thinking about how it wants to use the clickers. And it may be that we're going to just stick with this rule of the meeting going forward, or maybe that it will evolve.
Yeah, thank you. Kristen or Alice,
Yeah,
Chase, Kristen, please.
I mean, I think one of the important points to capture in the report is the reasoning, like why you're recommending this.
Yeah.
Whether, and it's a recommendation, and the moderator, each moderator can choose or to accept it or not. But at least they'll be like, this is why we're recommending taking it out of the hand of the moderator and things like that, and then they can make a decision. So I think that's valuable information.
I just wanted to clarify what could happen in the future. Okay.
Alice Kaufman, please.
Sorry, I've got very poor internet where I am. I think Pashar's amendment is a good one. I think that if we vote on this, we should read the entire amendment into the record so that we know what we're voting on and the language that we are either voting for or against. And I personally like this amendment, and I think it works well.
Good, thank you.
Oh, the other question is whether Mike, I have a concern about the word routinely. That's what got us in trouble in the last round of these. What is routinely? We either use them or not. And if we're saying that we are recommending that we use clickers on main motions and amendments to articles from the warrant at the discretion of the moderator, et cetera, the word routinely is not necessary because we've stated how we want the clickers to be used. And then there's a statement about the moderator's discretion.
So is that an amendment to my amendment to strike the word routinely?
Well, it looks like we have to do a little language change to the amendment already. It's to say the town meeting study committee recommends that clickers be used on main motions and amendments. I would just take the word routinely out because it routinely is confusing. It was confusing in our last meetings about it. So for me, it makes it clear what we're saying is clickers to be used for votes on main motions and amendments to articles from the warrant. At the discretion of the moderator, votes on procedural motions may be taken by a show of paper placards. So that's my interest, is to remove that word routinely and just state what we mean, which is a vote on the main motions and amendments.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. You have to strike the word routinely though.
Yeah. Kristen, where are you with that? You okay with striking the word?
That's fine. I'm likely to abstain anyway, so.
Fair enough.
But I think the discussion is important.
okay.
I think capturing the reasoning behind it is really important.
Keith or Chase, any concerns about striking the word routinely?
I think it's best
like-
to avoid confusion, to get rid of it.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna vote against the amendment. I want to keep routinely.
Yeah,
So first, we're having a debate on the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah,
So we're just debating the use of the word routinely right now.
Keith, can you elaborate as to why you're opposed to it? Maybe convince me?
Well, I voted for routinely once before, and I haven't been convinced that I should change that vote.
Because you're concerned when we say use for votes on main motions, would you be more comfortable to say all votes on main motions?
No, I'm not comfortable with all. And I think that eliminating routinely implies all, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Oh, I see. Alice?
I guess I look at that word differently, and to me, it adds confusion. And so, but if it doesn't work for Prashar, I understand what he's saying. But for me, the word routinely is the modifier, which also connotes it's all. And if that's the problem with all, it's probably a similar problem with routinely.
what about preferably?
Well, why don't we just say what we want it to be? Preferably lets that element of doubt still into what we mean. This committee is making a decision about how clickers will be used.
Okay.
We're making a decision about how they're going to be used. We're recommending and why. And then the
Right.
person who makes the decision is the moderator, right?
Right.
Right.
Or as Carmen's saying, the town meeting who's gonna adopt the rule of the meeting.
And I think one of my concerns about the original recommendation wasn't the word routinely, but if you remember, I was saying we should give the moderator more discretion. This gives the moderator a little more discretion than saying they must be used for all votes. So, I guess,
I'm sorry, Phil, I'm confused now, right? The recommendation that we made was use clickers routinely for votes and motions to approve articles from the warrant,
right,
right? So we didn't address the.
I
other
didn't
stuff.
vote for that because,
Yeah,
I didn't like the form of the motion, first of all,
Yeah.
but I thought routinely, yeah, it added a little fuzziness.
fuzziness,
But at the same time, I thought that fuzziness was good
right,
because the moderator needs some discretion.
Right.
You know, we don't want to sit around for a minute on a
Yeah.
completely uncontroversial vote. So I proposed the revised version, which included the word routine because I thought that was important to people. But I'm happy with Parashar's draft, including the word routinely, and if we change routinely to all. Or just take routinely out, I'm afraid that leaves too little discretion for the moderator. Not that we control, anyways, the moderator controls the
right.
method of voting.
So Parashar goes back to you then, I think.
Well, no, I think it's a vote for the committee about what to do with
Routinely,
routinely, and we have a motion by Alice to amend it, so we should just
Okay,
vote. It shouldn't be my decision,
fair enough.
right? Cause
So let's vote on this and move forward with the use of the word, so the question is, do we strike the word routinely from this amendment or not?
well, we need a second to Alice's motion, I think,
Um,
procedurally.
Do we have a second for Alice's motion?
Cause if we don't, then it doesn't go anywhere.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it so we can
Okay.
discuss it and then.
So, okay, and now, thank you, and now we're discussing again. Do we have any additional discussion on striking the word routinely from the amendment?
I'd like to add something. Can I start a conversation? What it says is, my proposal was to define what we mean by routinely, and that is that we would use clickers for votes on main motions and amendments to articles from the warrant. The next
Right.
sentence says, at the discretion of the moderator, votes on procedural motions.
Right,
It's not a warrant article or an amendment to a warrant article, and therefore, the routinely, we're not giving in this particular language, we haven't given the moderator discretion that's broad enough for her to be able to decide on a vote of a main motion or amendment to go use clickers or not. We said, we've taken that off her table, in which case we're
Right.
saying all. We're giving her the discretion, it looks like on Parashar, and maybe that's not what was intended, but the language says the moderator has discretion on votes on procedural motions, which is different than votes on motions or articles or amendments to articles.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Alice. That was intentional. Well, I don't know who was here for the original one, but it was the privacy, it was the counting, it was Eric's point about getting used to it, just use them. All of those rolled into routine. And so I simply took the language from the original. You can see I clarified what we mean by articles and took that language from Carmen's FAQ, and the next sentence was basically taken from Carmen's FAQs around what procedural motions are. So I was just simply trying to just further clarify what we meant and provide a little bit of room for moderator on the procedural stuff, just to use the placards. That's all this was.
Thank you. Keith, please.
Yeah, I think I've figured out my objection to the use of or removal of the word routinely is that I would like to have a standard that routinely the moderator uses clickers. But I want the moderator to have the ability to determine when something is not routine, which may call for something else. And if we take out routinely, then I think then we're simply saying in all cases with no discretion. We want the moderator to use the clickers, and I would like to reserve some flexibility for the moderator.
Good, thank you. David, do you want to speak to routinely or something else?
It's something else.
Okay, good,
I'll
thank
wait.
you.
Please
Thank
go
you.
ahead. Thank you.
Carmen, before we vote, do you have any comments on this use of the word routinely in terms of how it affects the work of the moderator?
The only thing I would say is that it's pretty difficult to predict every situation that might arise. And therefore, a little bit of room and a little bit of flexibility to adapt to unexpected situations is always a good thing.
Good, thank you. Alice, please?
So my only last comment is if we modified the language of where the moderator is given discretion, say at the discretion of the moderator, votes may be taken by a show of paper placards without defining that it's only on procedural matters, procedural motions. That would give her the latitude to decide. There's overwhelming support for this particular warrant article, no reason to need to use clickers.
So that's an additional modification. Can we deal with routinely and then come back to that?
Yeah, that's
Well,
the way you should.
for me, they're connected, but maybe not. It's not like laboring forever on this. If people don't like, if people are mostly happy with the routinely, I'm okay with that. For me, it wasn't clear enough what our decision was, since routinely is.
Let's vote on I'm concerned about time as well. Let's vote on routinely, and then see where we are. Okay, so this is a vote to keep or remove the word routinely from the amended motion. I guess an I would be to keep.
No,
No,
the motion was to remove routinely from
Okay,
Parashar's
okay, so the motion is to remove routinely from Parashar's motion. So going around, Keith Bergman, I to remove
No.
or to keep?
No,
Good, thank you. Chase Thompson, please.
No.
Okay. Alice Kaufman, please.
I would remove it. Aye.
Yes. To remove.
Yeah.
Kristen Haggerty, please.
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain. KH. Good, it's a new one for me. Okay, Phil Swain, please.
No,
No. And Parshar Patel,
no,
no to remove. Sorry, no is
to
to,
remove routinely.
no is to not remove
Right.
routinely.
right.
Did
So
you-
Eric
did you-
Moore, no, do not remove routinely. So it means that the motion then fails, and we're still looking at language here, which includes routinely. Now, back to discussion on that amendment. Alice, did you want to make another proposal to this, another amendment to this?
If others feel comfortable with routinely, we do not need to modify the second sentence. The moderator wants some flexibility. I think routinely may give that flexibility.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move to a vote then on the amendment. I'll read it. Okay, yeah, go ahead, David Allen.
My view that our town meeting, the democracy, it gives us, it serves best without being obscured by clickers is very well known. And outside this committee of the group of you, and you know, give my great thanks, but I'm very grateful nonetheless. All of you, and I think it will be discovered as rather widely held, but that's a topic for another time. What I was concerned about, when I came in, I read this online, was the word may, down in the sentence there, without the committee recommends, because it looked like a dictate to the moderator about when the moderator could then, but not otherwise. With the recommendation, that concern goes away. But I noticed that the discussion here, and I think it will prove to have been insightful, has been about discretion of the moderator, not just this town meeting, but every town meeting going forward. So, don't have anything to give to your vote, but I think it's important to have noted these things.
Good, thank you. So at this stage, are we ready for a vote on the Parashar-Patel amendment?
I think technically we might have to make an amendment to my original.
No, I moved that already.
Oh, you moved that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and you
thank you.
seconded it, I think.
So,
No, I didn't second it.
meaning,
Yeah.
Recommends
that
it.
original-
Recommends
that
it.
original recommendation
Yeah.
from January be amended as you,
as I wrote it, but then we just tweaked the beginning.
but since we, the motion was seconded, we were discussing that. We haven't, I guess we.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a drafting thing, I think, all right, fine, I move that we, amend the original recommendation as listed on the screen with the preface, TMSC recommends that clickers are to be used routinely.
Okay, good, second.
But I think in practice,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that gets ironed out in drafting, not, we don't need to, as a procedural matter,
Yeah,
move that
Okay,
change, but either way, I've done it now, so.
all right, this is why we hate amendments at town meeting as well. So, okay, so are we ready to, vote on this amendment, which reads, TMSC recommends that clickers are to be used routinely for votes and main motions, et cetera, et cetera. It's up here on the screen. Are we ready for a vote, or do we need additional discussion? Okay, we'll move into a vote, starting online. Keith Bergman, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Alice Kaufman, please.
Aye.
Chase Thompson, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Kristen Haggerty, please.
I'm going to abstain again.
Good, thank you. Phil Swain, please.
Yes,
Parashar-Patel, please.
aye,
Eric Moore, aye. So that passes, 6-0 with one abstention. Good, thank you. Well, that was a chunk of time, guys. This is what it needed to be. So the report, so recommendations, let me just think for a second. I think, the big thing that I feel that we need to accomplish tonight is to get clarity on what story the report is telling. I think I wanted to preface that with a little bit of reflection in terms of how we feel about, the recommendations that we've prepared, about the impact of the work of the committee. And, I think a question for me, because I really wrestle with this, is there enough change? Is there enough good change? So I'd like to take just a few minutes to get people's thoughts on the reflection question as a way of getting into really being clear about what the report is going to do. Kristen, maybe I could start with you. Please.
I would say that, I think the report should capture the big picture findings, which were that we spent a year looking at, previous reports, primarily, three main things that came to us primarily, and as you can tell from this meeting, electronic voting. But kind of the impetus behind having a town meeting study committee and, people's feelings about privacy or civility or any of these things. I feel like that was a lot of what we spent time talking about.
Mhm.
And, or even the fact, or convenience, right? Like that,
Mhm.
no, we don't have a lot of attendance, but people could attend or something, so. Like the report, and I think it should be significantly more concise than our first draft. You know, so I think that's pretty important, is that we kind of figure out what are those key points that we wanna come out.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I have taken away from this, you know, almost year-long process is. We're still hearing the same feedback about town meeting, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the format of town meeting itself. It's bigger than that. And one of the ways we're trying to address that is with electronic voting and privacy, to see if that makes a difference. But in general, you know, it's a lot of work and time to address this, you know, the budgets and the bylaws and things like that, and this is our method for doing it. So I'd say that those are kind of what I have taken away from this, and so being able to capture not just the recommendations, but the, like, why or why not is I think relevant. More so than whether the recommendations are taken up this year or in future years, so.
Good, thank you. I'll go around the room and then we'll go online, okay? Phil, can I get your comments? I mean, what's your overall feeling about the recommendations that we've made? And the impact of our work this year?
I think, I concur with Kristen that it needs to be more concise. I think our job in writing the report is to boil down all the work we've done into a brief summary so that people can understand. So the first draft has collected a lot of things. Now it's our job to pick out from that what's the important stuff.
So I get you on that. The question was really about how do you feel about what we've done? I mean, have we done enough? I mean, do we do
More
our
than
job?
enough. And I think, the key recommendations are, we should use clickers. We should add ourselves a petition for remote participation. And, there's a few other things that we've sort of discussed, but really aren't making recommendations. And so do we need to take 30 or 40 pages to do that? And so I'm just gonna throw out, I think it should not be more than 20 pages. I know that's completely arbitrary, it should be however long it takes. But I think if we want people to read it and pay attention, we have to boil it down. And we discussed a lot of things, we can summarize that, but we don't need to spell those out for everybody.
All right, good, thank you.
One of the things that's nice is we did discuss a lot, and you have referenced all the dates, people could go back to those minutes or recordings, so.
Yeah.
Good. Parshar, do you have any comments? I'm not asking about the report, I'm really
Sure.
asking about your assessment of the work of the committee.
So. I think we've done what we can. We are not going to be able to solve all the problems. And I say that because, and I think it's important to mention somewhere in the report, oh, by the way, the last towns, they have the same issues crop up.
Sure.
Because historical context in this case is important. Folks thought about it earlier, some things were adopted, others weren't, we run into the same issues. Here's some changes we're recommending, and oh, by the way, the recommendations for why we were formed, and keep it short and sweet. We were never going to get participation at 20% or 30%. So I never entered into this thinking that was gonna be the goal.
Good, thank you.
So I think we've done what we can.
Good.
The potential impact is TBD.
Good. Yeah, okay, it is what it is, it's a way of saying that, what Kristen said, sort of, and then we've done it as well. Let me go online. Alice, can I get your comments about just reflection on the work that we've done this year?
So I think we are being asked for recommendations and some decisions about what things we didn't recommend and why. I think, so I know that I wrote way too much stuff, but it's hard to, when you're asked to look at representative town meeting, I think that Eric's preamble takes a bunch out of what I wrote, so that would make, I could edit that down and take it out if we don't think we need it, but
Yeah,
we made a decision that open town meeting is where we're going to keep our government in town, that, and maybe the simple thing that we understood is that any change from that is a wholesale change in our government, not a meeting process. So I do think we need a little discussion about some of the changes, but I honestly feel like our work nibbled around the edges of change. It's doing the little things, breaking down more barriers so more people can attend, talking to the right people, getting more, nibbles at how to make a meeting more effective. But I think, so I think we spent a lot of time on process, probably more than we needed to get to those same recommendations. Because we don't have that many new ideas than what had been proposed in last year, the last town meeting study committee, or from what other towns have done in their reports as well. We're not breaking new ground, is what I think.
sure. Good, thank you. Keith, please?
Yeah, I recognize the report as being of the committee that I served on. So that was good. I think our narrative report should be no longer than 5 pages. And if there need to be appendices or something attached to that, fine. I think the audience is going to stop reading after, I don't know, what a composition of 3 pages is 1,000 words or something. We have some summary recommendations that we want to communicate. I think it would be helpful to communicate them once instead of several times. And just say cogently what our recommendation is on once when we bring it up. And I think that what our work has been all about is what we value open town meeting. We value removing barriers for those who wish to participate in open town meeting. And that's sort of our story. That's why we recommend some things and don't recommend others. And
Good.
I think it's a good, solid set of work that we've done. Thanks.
Thank you. Chase, please.
I was a little late to the committee, so I can't speak to the full year of work that you guys have done, but I agree with everything that was said prior. I think it's important, I think particularly if we're going to attach, additional content, that we be prescriptive with how to try to go about implementing some of these things where it makes sense. I'm weary of, in my case in particular, just saying like, oh, we need to do a better job of marketing and advertising, but not providing at least a bit of a framework and a plan around that.
Right.
It might appear as, a little bit like, well, duh,
Good, thank you.
Can I just add something? And Alice, what you said struck me. I hope folks aren't feeling like we failed because we didn't come up with big, huge changes. And the reason I feel that way is because we had other values, considerations, whatever you want to call them,
Right,
that prevent big, huge changes,
right,
right? So our meeting takes 2.5 days. Well, we chose not to put limits on people. We chose A, B, and C.
right.
And unless we, the citizens, constrain ourselves at the mic, it's gonna run 2 days.
Right.
So hopefully folks don't feel beat up. And we shouldn't be self-defensive about why there aren't big changes.
Sure,
I think some of the recommendations are major recommendations. Using clickers is a new thing for the town.
right,
It's not a new thing for the towns around us, for
Yes,
the most part.
sure.
But it is a new thing for the town, so that's momentous. And we decided to file a petition or to submit a petition or participate or join a petition
right,
for remote participation.
right. There are
That's
some,
momentous.
there are some
Okay,
big
fair enough.
things. Yeah,
And then, and then we considered other potentially momentous, like switching to representative town meeting and decided no. So that's a momentous no.
Right.
And, you know, a few other lesser recommendations on, you know, participation, but.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we got at least three major.
Okay, yeah,
Good.
that's good.
good. I'll just say, just to conclude this phase of it, go ahead, Kristen.
I guess one of the things, that seems like it needs to come out is, I can just leave it right now. Nope, sorry.
Not your, not now.
Not that important, I guess.
That's all right. Yeah, I think you may succeed at not breaking town meeting as well, which is, actually important. So,
Oh,
go ahead, Kristen, yeah, thank you.
I want the report to answer this question of representation,
Hmm.
right? And to your point, like, we're not gonna have 20%. So that means that every year, we're still gonna have, there's still 3% of the people making the decisions.
Yeah,
So I really want the report to describe why that is okay.
yeah. So I agree with you. I'll just, because Eric Van Loon is not here tonight, and he did communicate to me that he feels it's really important that the report address that question.
Okay.
His framing of it as well is that, you know, if you take local election as an upper bound, you know, what we get at town meeting is a significant chunk of those folks who pay attention to local government. That was his language, my language, but it is framing. Keith, and then we'll move forward, please.
Yeah, I think that the recommending remote voting is a pretty substantial measure of how we want to increase participation in open town meeting. And when you include with that the fact that not only you know, might we have a home rule petition, but there's statewide legislation that's being supported, as I said at a previous meeting, that's been being supported by the Massachusetts Municipal Association on behalf of all cities and towns to allow any open town meeting to be able to have remote participation. That is, and that's the first time that I've seen that happen. So these are some significant things that are happening in our world, and we're moving towards that vision of more participation in town meeting. Might take a while to get there, but that's our vision of where we're headed for those who are still asking questions about it.
Good, thank you. Okay, David, briefly, and then I want to move forward.
Just as I trust very widely know, the reason why I'm here is because I've been a decade about getting remote participation. So obviously, I'm very pleased with that part. But what I wanted to observe is that to the extent, and there have been probably been stated strongly on the other side, but to the extent that there's been just nibbling around the edge, what that actually implies is that Concord has a pretty damn good town meeting,
Yeah,
and not breaking it is bloody important. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, you know, it's funny for me, right? Both those things are true. We have a pretty good town meeting, and that we get 70 pages of critical comments about town meeting in the survey.
And I
So,
would suggest that
yeah,
the electorate who, ain't an electorate, but, it has some unhappinesses, don't quite understand what's going on.
right.
I'll make a comment about that about later.
Good, thank you. So moving forward to the report, so I put together a version 1, which we all acknowledge is too long. Kristen, really, your comments I thought were really insightful and from my perspective, and you know, really useful. We've had contributions from pretty much everybody. You know, I know you're in work in progress, Phil. Chase, I talked today a little bit about writing up engagement opportunities, but we have a lot of the pieces in place. So that's good for where we are right now. I think the question, right, is given the version 1, given what we all believe we need to have, you know, we know what the headlines are. What do we do now? What's version 2 gonna be? I think And I think I want to be clear about what story are we telling for what audience and how big is that? Right, you know, we can have a 5-page report, you know, a 3-page report, a 20-page report, and maybe an appendix, maybe not. What is the thing that we're gonna be shipping? We can, you know, as a benchmark, we've got the report from the Acton Area League of Women Voters. That's about 20 pages, so about a third of that is talking about other forms of local government. Concise, readable, but what do we want? What do we want to do here? Kristen, I'll start with you, if I may.
You started with us, Bill doesn't.
Okay.
I'll say what I think.
But I'll probably forget by the time we.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you can't have a report drafted by committee. You have to
Uh-huh.
have either a single draftsman or a very small drafting committee
right,
that we delegate this to.
yeah,
Because otherwise, we're gonna end up repeating ourselves. I mean, I know this from writing briefs and
Right,
doing things and legal things. When you have multiple authors, all these people do it, say things differently.
Right.
Even if it's just, how do we say the word committee?
right,
Or
So-
routine.
I use the word committee in my draft,
yeah,
committee, I spelled it out. But a lot of people use TMSC,
yeah,
and to me, what the hell is that? And the reader's gonna say, what is the TMSC?
yeah,
So, but anyways, somebody has to just make all those decisions.
right,
And about nomenclature, somebody has to go through it and not repeat the same thing multiple times.
right,
And organize it, so it either has to be a single author or a two-person drafting committee.
sure, understood. Parashar, let me come back to you. I'm gonna go, Alice, so I assume you've taken a look at version 1, you've seen the comments that we have. You know, you know your way around a report. What should we emphasize for version 2? What do you think the structure of the report should be?
I think I'm going to go back one step and say, I think that Phil is right on. You cannot write a report like this by committee. And that it needs to be written by a much smaller group of this group in one voice with that common nomenclature, and that follows a prescriptive agenda like you've laid out here. The executive summary isn't just what the outcome is, because that's the outcome of the recommendations, but it's a piece that Eric wrote, and maybe it's a little bit about our process, but it's really, you know, how is it that we got to where we're going and what did we say? And then people can stop reading if they don't want to read any of the rest.
Right.
You know, I think where we can display information in charts or graphs rather than language, I think that would also be helpful, that people understand that there are pros and cons to everything, and that we've looked at pros and cons where it was feasible. So,
Mhm.
I have no real comments about the immediate structure of it, but I think it needs to be a smaller group writing a draft that the whole committee can take a look at and weigh in on. But it can't just have sections doled out at this point. We have all the information. Now we have to make it sound like a whole one written report.
Agreed, understood and agreed. I think, we didn't have the sections a week ago, so we have that content to integrate now. Shades, do you have any comments about the report? What's the right story that we're gonna tell? What's the right structure for the report? Who's the audience? How big is it?
Yeah, I'll comment on a couple of things. I think executive summary makes a ton of sense. Short, sweet. I always default to like a video clip on some of this stuff if you really want to get the audience wide.
You're gonna make a video for us in May, Shades, I hope.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm serious.
The other thing I would say too, in every group project that I ever had in academia, I would say exactly what you're all saying, which is I am willing to write the entire project myself. I am not willing to write by committee. So either you nominate me to do the entire work or I'm opting entirely out because it's so painful. That said, AI has changed that. And I am weary of giving a small portion of the committee that much work. I do think you can compile lots of really longer, well thought out responses feed that into tools and have them do a very thoughtful output that can be reviewed by a smaller committee. So that's just, one point to keep in mind. Finding a similar voice can be achieved a lot easier now than it could be a couple of years ago. So food for thought.
Thank you. Keith, please, any comments about, I'm trying to recall what you said earlier, but what's the report we're delivering?
Well, I think the format should be, whoever's writing it should even have in mind, some of the rules for either writing a press release or writing an article in the newspaper that someone will read. And that is, you give them the main story right up front.
Right,
Don't write it, it should not read like a mystery novel.
yeah,
Where you have to read until the very end. I just waded through a torturous report put out by the state's Unlocking Housing Production Committee, and I have to read to the very last page to find out what recommendation number 50 is. And I lost my patience somewhere around page 10. So we have some succinct recommendations to make. We should make those up front. I think it's important to state what our values are up front. What are we, what are we all about? As I said before, town meeting and open town meeting, removing barriers to participation. And here are our specific things that we are proposing to do. The big three, as the report refers to.
yeah.
And so that's those would be my suggestions.
Good, thank you. Parashar, last time it was keep it over 20 pages. What else you got?
No, I would agree, definitely less than 20. The appendix. It probably should be no more than 4 or 5 pages. Because, look, let's be real. We do our work. 10 years, 15 years later, maybe another committee forms, times will be totally different. What they really need to know is what we recommended, some considerations, etc. They don't need to know the details of, we spent 20 hours doing this and 15 minutes and all the detail in the survey. The survey's out there for the public record. We don't need to rehash all of that. Everything's in the minutes. So again, let's keep even the appendix short and sweet that just tells people highlights of the process. I don't know what we mean by what we learned, because what we learned presumably is in the first 20 pages. So I'm not sure what more we would want in an
Right.
appendix.
So I assume you took a look at version 1. What would you change about that?
Now length, and again, there's a lot of repetitiveness
Uh-huh.
going on. It needs heavy editing, and I would agree. I mean, 1 or 2 folks. How many folks were on the committee that wrote the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, and we're still fighting about it, right?
I don't know.
It was a single principal author,
Yes.
who was actually not one of the main, was Thomas Jefferson. who
Yeah.
Was not one of the main, delegates or
Yeah.
persons. He was a young person,
Yeah.
but they respected his writing.
Chase, I think that sounds like you.
I actually have a thought.
Yeah.
Do it.
It's just- So I think we should have a 3-person drafting committee, including both Eric's and Chase. So we have Eric squared and Chase and that they be delegated the task of boiling down what our first draft, using whatever tools we can, including AI, to a less than 20-page draft.
Second that.
It's not, well, it's not what I want, but before we get into that, Kristen, can I get your comments about what do you think this should be? And again, guided by your, just if you want to re-echo some of the comments you made in the document on version 1 as well.
Yeah, my main thing is, I feel like boiling down is a challenge. I would almost recommend kind of starting with a fresher outline. Just to and then building from there, that way that's how I would recommend tackling it, based on kind of our comments about what to keep in, right? You keep in the main recommendations, you keep in the principles, and kind of, so there's some key things that we would keep in there. And I think Eric Van Loon, when he had an executive summary, I think he tried to do that, so I think that part captured it well. Yeah, so that's what I would do, is I would start with the main things we said were our main takeaways and make sure that to build out from there. I don't know if there was any other relevant things I said in my comments. Some of it was moving things around, but
Yeah.
that was because there was some, repetition throughout, so.
Sure. Sure, I think you caught some of the nuances around some of the recommendations that were made as well. I think that were important to keep them. So how do we get this done? I wrote a version 1, I did what I did, and my emphasis was on a document whose structure captured my sense of the recommendations, but it's certainly not a narrative victory. I'll say, Kristen, that I think you could do a really excellent job with taking version 1 or some fresh approach on that to produce a shorter report. But I don't know if you want to be the principal on that.
I would go with Phil's recommendation. Or, but thank you. I would be curious to know if Chase wanted to be principal author. And the reason I say that is, and you don't have to be principal author, but he's coming in, I think, as the next wave of people we're trying to attract to town meeting, right? And so maybe a report that speaks to him and his audience might go further in the, in the next couple decades.
I'm gonna, look, I know how busy Chase is. I think it's a good suggestion. I think I would certainly welcome Chase's editorial feedback. To hear Chase go, yeah, this doesn't land or this makes sense, I think it'd be really valuable. But I also, I'm just speaking for you, Chase, I'm sorry. I'm not confident in handing a report off to Chase right now. I know, so that's my perspective, just as chair. Sorry, Chase, you get to speak up now.
I confided in Eric that I've launched 3 businesses this year, and took me 4 months to get the meeting minutes to you guys. So I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think where I could add value is coming in towards the end and giving it a fresh set of eyes and skinning it down to something that's a little bit more consumable. So to whatever degree I can participate in that, I'd be happy to, but probably taking the pen would be more than I can handle right now personally.
Good, thank you. So who else would like to be the principal author of version 2?
Eric Van Loon, he's not here to object.
Well,
Yes, yeah, you'll get back from us to New Zealand or wherever.
Well,
it
he
is.
did a good job on the summer, the executive summary, I think he did.
I don't know if it's
he's a
good.
good writer, all right, he's definitely a good writer.
He did a
I
good
think,
job.
we're not gonna see Eric, I think, for our next meeting either. Which means that we're now deep into the first week of April
I
before.
understand he took his computer with him.
Yeah, he's got a long
Lovely,
flight.
right?
He's got a long flight
Yeah.
back.
Got a telegram with him.
Signal.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, meeting of principals, let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is I, in the next 2 weeks, I definitely am not.
Yeah.
Not going to be able to move a lot of words or few words.
Yeah. Alice, how are you for taking version 1 and producing a version 2?
So I probably can do a version 2. But I think it would be helpful to have a co-reader in putting something together. I think we have Eric has submitted, Eric Van Loon has submitted his comments for an executive summary.
Yeah.
I could take a stab, but I think I definitely want to talk it through with somebody else who's written reports like these before. I can write it. Attorneys are always helpful.
Yeah. So let me suggest this. So thank you so much. All right. I think I'll take version 1. I'll take the stuff that was submitted to us, that's submitted so far, integrate that into version 2. I think, there's some really good comments about version 1 as well. So I'll take a pass at that and hand it to you. So that the bulk of what you're doing is really cutting and editing, if that makes sense. And then in terms of flow or whatever, I think, I'm confident you can make whatever choices, and then we can come back and see what the committee thinks in terms of what's landing and what's not landing.
And who is the you that you said you would give it to?
I would give you version 2 to
Me.
edit.
Okay,
So I will take version 1, integrate the
Okay.
material, additional material that we have. Integrate some of the feedback that we have so far. Mark it up, it won't be pretty. And then I'll hand that to you as version 2 for you to edit into a version 3.
okay.
Can I make one suggestion?
Yeah,
And Shannon, can you investigate whether there's any AI programs that could help with the version 2?
I can look at that, that's fine. Copilot, and I've got the Google thing. I
But
can take a look at that. Yeah.
someone that I work with on another committee is really, really good with working with AI. John Boynton, who I'm sure a lot of you
I
know.
know, John.
And he's been able to help me with AI several times with MCI conference stuff,
Well,
so.
can we check with him then and see what should we use? I know you can do it too, Eric, but see what
I
John
would
suggests.
Yeah.
Fine,
Could say,
John.
Use
tips.
this
Yeah.
app or whatever.
But it's only as good as like we can structure it, right? So we can feed it everything and it can feed stuff back, and it doesn't mean that it's done in the organized. Like, I do think the organization and like, all right, this is really what we wanna keep in there is the critical part that I don't think we can rely on AI to do well.
I agree. I mean, AI is not gonna do it, but it's just to make life easier for Alice. She's gonna get a 60 or 70 page document. Can we ask AI, can you summarize this document?
I'm gonna give Alice a 20-page document, all right? That's the box we're talking about. So I'll take what I have.
Boil it down.
I'm gonna boil it down,
Okay.
all right? We'll see what the appendix is or whatever else. But it'll be about 20 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, good. David Allen, please, member of the public.
Thank you, sir. On AI, Chris is really, we got to go there. You get out of AI, you put in it. It's all about the prompts you write.
Yeah,
And sometimes the prompts are as large as the themes. You get good product out. Not to mention, what you get out also depends upon the base that it comes from. Companies that allow their knowledge bases, giant companies to be incorporated in AI, get good stuff out. The rest of us get lies, so-called hallucination. Terrifying, frankly.
yeah,
I know, I've been there many times. I'm part of a group, part of my business school, alumni association, we get every 6 months updates on AI. It is changing at the speed of light. I copied out today, 6 different new things. We're doing this, that, and the other thing. Sorry, AI is not a magic bullet.
yeah.
Period.
I was working in AI 35 years ago.
I'm not surprised.
I said-
I
Yeah,
would have almost guessed that was the case, Harry.
yeah, good.
Thank you.
But I just want to
So,
clarify,
yeah.
I'm not suggesting that we hand in what AI
Yeah.
spits out. We just see what it can do. It might do a bunch of hallucinations, you're right, so you gotta go through it, but I'm just saying it might be a useful tool.
It also comes out bland as hell. It'd be unreadable. It doesn't capture anybody's attention.
Okay, thank you. So we've answered the big question, which is that I'm gonna write version 2 and then hand it off to Alex and we'll do the best that we can. I don't have anything else for tonight. Do we have any other comments for tonight?
I just had one question that I came up with in drafting the 2 sections that
Yeah.
I'm doing. There was a discrepancy in the, you sent a draft on some of the issues about the survey. And it was discrepancy from the report that we have on our website. So I'm just wondering which one we use, and maybe I'll just leave that up to you, but.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your
It
question.
wasn't a large discrepancy, but so for example, on electronic voting. The draft that you gave me to start with said there was 65 or 66% support, but.
And then Katie's report is,
Or 86, I'm sorry, 86%.
so Katie's report is authoritative.
Katie's.
Is that the one on the website?
What do you mean by on the website?
There's on our committee website, there's a survey results document.
Yeah,
So that number is the one I've always been using,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
83% in favor of clickers.
yeah.
But the draft I saw was 86%. And that's not a big discrepancy. I'm just wondering, is there a reason for that? Same with the
Yeah.
Australian ballot thing.
When Katie produced her 4-page report on the survey, she reran the numbers. So whatever she has, I would treat as authoritative,
I see.
and that would be an
Katie's
update,
report.
that would
Okay,
be an update to what we had earlier,
all right,
so.
all right.
So can I make a suggestion then to Shannon, can we get Katie's report and put that on the website so everything's consistent?
Well, it's gonna go in the report.
But if you have if you have a different document on the website that says some numbers and a report says
We can say
another.
in the report that Katie's report supersedes.
No, but why can't we just put Katie's report on the website? That's all.
Because people are gonna have the same question I did.
Yeah.
I didn't
So I'm
have
just
Katie's
suggesting
report.
that we
handy.
get
I just
Katie's
looked up
report on the
It's
website.
gonna go in our.
And I saw your draft.
Eric, believe me, I've been there with the
Yeah.
finance committee. If people read it, they go to the website, they see that, and they're gonna ask for two different numbers.
Okay,
So is one of the, is gonna post Katie's report on the website? Okay.
I'm gonna reread Katie's report, and then go back and reread the original, and then make a decision about how to deal with that,
Yeah.
okay? But your concern.
I think
is,
questions
yeah.
are gonna be asked because we do have the survey result document on the website. That's a little different.
Good. Good, clearly noted. All right, anything else? Yes, David,
Thank
really
you.
short, please.
Thanks, sir, of course. I'd say this is about finding your discussion here about the front of the report. You'll not be surprised, I was not able to get through 60+ pages in today's packet. So it was a very refresh. Nonetheless, I was struck and delighted to take away what I thought I saw, which was that the main impact was reaching out and bringing more democracy to the citizens when we only have so damn few who responded. I mean, incidentally, I don't think my notions of marketing weren't there, but that's a more mechanical topic. What I do want to be heard is that I was struck, and I agree, quite impressive, a success, accomplishment of the committee's long work is that instead of these, if you please, nibbles around the edges, maybe a little bit here and there, like digital stuff and so on, but the big success is realizing that what needs to happen is to get the town informed about their role as citizens in this conversation. So if you saw it that way, but that's what I felt. I want to say how much I appreciate it.
Good, thank you. Any other discussion? Carmen, any closing comments from you before we close?
Sorry. No, I will say that I just finished a year and a half of rewriting town meeting time with an editorial board of 6. So I'm very sympathetic to the question of how you write by committee. But
I can imagine.
yeah. But the only thing I want to remind you is that the select board hearing is on April 14th. And if you wish at one of the hearings to give any kind of preview of the town meeting study committee's report, that would probably be the hearing to do it at, because it's, it's not, the Hear Reports article is not a financial article, so it wouldn't be at a finance committee report, and it wouldn't be at the planning board hearing, so it would be the select board hearing. So that would be the place.
Good, thank you. Okay, so the time is 8:26 p.m. I'm gonna close the meeting. Thank you, everyone.